Hot hatches are very popular in the UK, but warm hatches can be just as popular as they offer sporty looks but don't cost as much to buy or to run. Ford has got the Fiesta ST line and Seat has got the Ibiza FR. However, there's now a new kid on the block. Say hello to the Nissan Micra N Sport. I headed over to a rather wet Portugal to see if it's any good. Right, come on then, own up, who took the sun? So we are now in the new N Sport. So first impressions, it feels pretty punchy. Underneath the bonnet you have a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine which kicks out 117 horsepower with 180 Newton meters of torque. However, you do have an overboost function, so for a limited time you do get 200 Newton meters of torque. I'm going to change gear with my left hand, which obviously isn't going to work. I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, on the wrong side of the car. So into first, make sure nothing's coming, and those are the windscreen wipers, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Dave's mentioned it in his video, but you may have heard it, or you may have not, because we're wearing clip-on microphones, but you do have this whine when you rev the car, which is similar to, we're going banging left here, aren't we?
Yes, we're going, this way.
Which is similar to the noise in the 0.9 litre engine, which is now being discontinued. You do get a bit of a whine, but it's not quite as prominent as what you got in the 0.9 litre. Now, I'm joined by Dave from AutoBears, so please give him a very warm welcome. It's good to have you along.
It's good to be along. This is my second international launch. This is Aaron's first. So it's a bit of a big deal, and it's really great because I've known Aaron for about a year or so.
Yeah.
Kind of meeting him at a couple of launches, a couple of media events, and yeah, this is a brilliant experience to kind of get to know the new Nissan Micra.
But what you really want to know are performance stats. So this will hit 62 miles per hour in 9.9 seconds, so just shy of 10 seconds, and the top speed is 121 miles per hour. So this is of course a warm hatchback as opposed to a full-blown hot hatchback. Now, I did speak to Nissan and I said you really ought to make a hot version of this car, but unfortunately it isn't in their plans, which is a pity really, because I think the standard Micra is a good enough base for a hot variant, but who knows, you know, one day maybe we will see a Micra Nismo, but that is then, hopefully, and this is now. So this car has been dropped by 10mm, and the suspension and the steering has been revised to make it more sporty and more dynamic. Around town, I'm sure you'll agree, Dave, the ride is a little bit firm and a bit jittery, but that is that's the trade-off of having.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, just quickly, let's touch upon comfort and the ride. So Dave, your thoughts? You've driven this car and you are now, of course, a passenger.
So one thing, kind of, as you can probably tell from looking at us, I mean, Aaron's a lot taller than myself. I'm a lot wider. So one thing I do look at, kind of, the seats are going to be an important thing. Now, the base of these seats, I'm actually very comfortable in. They're actually wide, they support very well. Something that Aaron pointed out, and I will say actually on the passenger seat, I've noticed it is quite firm on my back. Hopefully it's something that will kind of give as time goes on, and we are about to descend into hell.
Where are we going? This is definitely the right way the sat-nav has taken us.
This is a very...
Well, this is very cobbled, so this is a good test, and quite narrow. So down here, yes, the ride is a little bit lumpy.
I've got to say, there's no sound though, there's no crashy booms or anything resonating into the cabin. It's dealing with those really well. Yes, you can feel them, but that's the trade-off of any time that you lower the suspension on the car, is you're going to get improved handling, but a compromise.
This is very scenic.
This is incredibly scenic.
The ride is firm, but it's never crashy. I've never really felt uncomfortable. But Dave, you were talking about the passenger seat.
Yeah, so yeah, as I was saying, the actual back seems a little bit firmer than the driver's seat. So I don't know if it's just the fact that there's been more people driving the car compared to on the launch so far. But that's the only kind of light criticism. I think I could do a long journey in this and not come away with any backache or anything like that. And we're just driving past. There's another Nissan Micra.
Well, can we go up there?
I think it's going up there, isn't it?
It looks to be.
Yeah, it's up that way, I think.
As it turns out, we couldn't go up there.
We're actually being told to go away by a gentleman.
In fairness, the sat nav hasn't made it very clear. He looks rather angry.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's.
But this is where the sat nav took us down, so I don't really know where we're meant to be going.
Going that way, up that way. Morning, sir.
Hello. The navigation, it got us a little bit confused.
Do you speak English, sir?
Código da estrada. Código da estrada, olha, olha lá, olha, olha.
Oh, you got it that way?
Vem cá.
Yeah. Oh. I'm being summoned out.
Conheces? Conheces?
Yes, sorry. The navigation looked like it.
Despite the obvious language barrier, it did eventually become apparent that we were trying to enter the historic town centre of Sintra, which didn't allow cars.
Não carros. Centro histórico. Não carros aqui, não carros.
Ah,
No cars up there, it's that way.
understand.
Thank you very much.
With the Portuguese police officer's words firmly ringing in my ears, it was time to get back to car reviewing.
So guys, we've not ended up in prison. We are back on the road. I didn't understand a single word that gentleman said.
The thing is, he can tell we're English and we can't understand. So his attitude was just to talk louder.
Yeah.
And granted, that's what Brits do when we go abroad.
Exactly.
So kind of, maybe that's calmer.
Yes.
That's poetic justice, perhaps. So yes, your thoughts on. We digressed quite a lot there, but yes, your thoughts on the passenger seat.
Yes.
Because I found it to be a little bit too firm, but granted, this is a brand new car.
Yeah, it's a little bit firm on the back, and the base is absolutely fine. But I will ask, what's your feelings now actually being in the driver's seat compared to the passenger seat? Because I did drive the car first.
It feels softer.
Yeah.
Let's talk about price. The N Sport starts from £17,935 if you go for the 100 horsepower engine, and £19,005 if you go for the 117 horsepower unit featured on this video. That is more than the equivalent Fiesta ST line and Ibiza FR, but you do get a decent amount of kit, including N Sport styling, 17-inch alloys, privacy glass, part leather Alcantara interior, 7-inch touchscreen, navigation, smartphone connectivity, reversing camera, rear parking sensors, cruise control and high levels of safety equipment. In regards to running costs, on a combined run this engine offers 47.9 mpg, which is lower than its rivals, but CO2 is on par with its competition as it emits 114 grams per kilometre. For the first year of VED it will cost you £165 and its insurance group is 11E, which is lower than the ST line and FR, which have a group of 12. In regards to space, it's the same as the standard Micra, meaning rear space is cramped for taller passengers, but you do get a boot that offers 300 litres.
Right, so we are out of the town centre a little bit.
Yeah.
Not the most scenic roads, but let's test the handling. The grip is pretty good. The front end, it's got quite a nice directness to it. Is it as dynamic to drive as an Ibiza or a Fiesta? Very tough to say at this moment in time. I would kind of need to drive them back to back. But in regards to handling, the body roll is well controlled. As I said, there's a good amount of grip, and you can throw this car about quite a bit. The brakes have got a nice, strong feeling to them.
They have. They're not grabby or sharp.
The steering has been made sharper for this car. I would need to drive it back to back with a standard Micra to see whether there's any large changes you can detect. But in my short drive, because this is a first drive video, not a full-blown review, in my first drive, the steering has felt fine. It's quite nicely weighted. I would want it to be a little bit heavier, but that's personal preference, of course. It does mean the car is easy to maneuver around town, so some of these streets have been quite tight. To keep going that way, yeah.
Yeah, go that way.
Some of the streets have been quite tight, but at no point have I had any concerns trying to maneuver this car. And the steering is pretty direct. I would just want it to be a little bit heavier and a little bit more feedback. But let's face it, quite a lot of cars nowadays, they don't have the kind of feedback you would want or expect. Because of course, every car nowadays uses electric power steering.
And as a result, you do get a lot of cars, kind of like the Ibiza, where you can get driving modes, and with the Volkswagen Group cars, and with them, you do get things like Eco, Normal, and Sport. So that kind of, even though it's an electric steering sensation, it does put added weight onto there, and you can customise the ride to help you out with that. So that's something that could be looked forward to, when they do come to revise the Micra.
Yeah.
Perhaps put in a sport mode.
A sport mode would be really good, actually. I'd really enjoy that.
And perhaps not firm up the suspension, because I think it's already,
No.
Having it lowered has already done enough. And with that kind of added sportiness, so to say, with the steering, you can feel a little bit more connected to the car. But what it means is with the Micra, it's very easy to drive. It's kind of, you can drive it around town. We've just been driving around a little town. We've been shouted at by the law. But it's in kind of close proximity, in kind of slow speed. It's very light. You could do it with one hand. You can manoeuvre with one hand and get yourself out of trouble. And as a result, the N Sport does come with a reversing camera as standard,
Which is very handy back at that point where we got shouted at.
Exactly. So it does mean when you're parking the car, if you're reverse bay parking, it does add to that comfort and making things a lot easier for you. So the livability with the car and usability is still very high with it. But with the fact that you've got that extra performance from the engine, from that 1 litre, you kind of want to compromise of perhaps having a little bit more sportiness and perhaps a little less kind of ease of driving, so to speak. So that's why, mentioning kind of the sport mode or a mode button where you can just kind of give the car a little bit more of a firmer edge, so to speak.
So as standard, you've got a 6-speed manual gearbox. There's no automatic. The changes are okay. They're precise enough, but I don't know about you, Dave. I find the changes a little bit rubbery.
Yes, it's a little bit. I wanted to use the term kind of spongy. It's kind of. I have had a couple of issues where getting into gear, it just won't kind of go in and hold itself, and you have to kind of give it a little bit of a push. It's not as bad as something kind of like an old Peugeot or anything like that, where you could usually kind of sneeze at the gearbox and it will just change gear for you. It's not that kind of loose or anything like that, but it's just it's a little bit kind of spongy with it. You can change gear quite quickly once you go up through the gears. It might loosen up a little bit as kind of miles get put on the car, but it's not a bad gearbox by any means, but there are better 6-speed manuals out there.
Yeah, it kind of lacks the crispness of its rivals.
Yes.
But yeah, like Dave says, it's not a bad gearbox. It just isn't quite there with the best in class.
Right, acceleration time, we're on a motorway.
Yeah,
Right,
unexpectedly. That's pretty strong. It pulls quite well.
Yeah.
As you said, there is a little bit of lag, but once you get it to about 2,500, it pulls quite strongly. It just pulls you along. And of course, you've got that overboost function as well, so you get 20 extra Newton meters of torque, just to help you along even more.
It's quite good. If you're in the right gear, you can overtake in the car.
Yeah.
Again, that was something that perhaps people found with the 0.9.
Yeah, you couldn't really do that.
Yeah, you had to kind of get a build up, and then with a lot of those cars with that kind of power output, you end up kind of running out of puff, so to speak, at around 60, 70 miles an hour. And that's where the kind of speed where you want to look at overtaking. And if you can't do that, that's when you feel as though you end up kind of feeling kind of left behind a little bit. So again, the engine really helps with that mid-range poke. So especially in gear, when you're in the turbo, when you're in that range, it does help with the performance of it, definitely.
Well, we weren't expecting to be on the motorway, but let's talk about refinement. There is a bit of wind noise, but there's not a lot of tyre noise.
No, that's actually very, very well insulated.
I have to say, credit where credit's due. It's actually quite quiet in here for a warm hatchback. Yeah, and the interior's a nice place to be as well. I really like the Alcantara.
Yeah.
It really, I really think that will give it an edge in regards to interior design compared to the Ibiza and the Fiesta. And I think Nissan has been quite shrewd there, because if you walk into a Nissan dealership, have a look at this, you'd think, ooh, Alcantara in a Micra.
So, should you buy the Micra N Sport? I'll be honest, it's not quite as fun to drive as its rivals, and it's also a little bit more money to buy. However, you do get a lot of kit as standard. The Alcantara is a nice touch, and the new engine gives the Micra the sporty dynamic drive I think it should have had to begin with. So if you're looking for a Micra but you want an injection of sportiness, I'm sure the N Sport will make you happy. Big thank you for Dave from AutoBears for joining me. Please do check out his channel, I've put the links in the video description below. And a thank you for you watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click that bell icon. And if you aren't subscribed, guys, what are you waiting for? Be sure to subscribe for more car obsession.